back here at the Hall of History with our look at the Vietnam War, and in this particular episode, we're going to look at the end of the war. What events led to it? One was the Tet Offensive. Prior to this offensive of '68, most Americans supported the war, but then after this offensive, the tide did turn in the political and the public opinion. Excuse me. We're gonna have you do a little exercise on the Tet Offensive. It was a major by the North Vietnamese Army at the time against U.S. troops. President Johnson was blamed for the failure of the American forces. In fact, he ended up after the assassination of Kennedy, he did not run for re-election. Nixon became president in the election, and he saw the writing on the wall, the political will and the popularity of the war before 1968 was dwindling, and he was started to draw down the number of troops that were going to Vietnam and that were fighting there. Another incident which really turned the popular opinion was the My Lai Massacre, and again we talked about the stress of battle, you know, in the previous video, and this was a unspeakable massacre of 150 Vietnamese women and children, and once this became public, the tide of popular opinion definitely went against the war, and the United States started speeding up the evacuation of U.S. troops out of Vietnam and turning the fighting over to the South Vietnam Army. And here we have a picture that was taken at that time. The United States were pulling out of Vietnam, but Nixon, it was still the political policy was the whole idea of the domino theory, and some of our troops started going into Cambodia. College students started striking across the nation against the war. The Kent State protests where the National Guardsmen fired into the crowd, killing a couple of students there, and 12 others were wounded. The social fabric of the United States was really unraveling at this time, very much in upheaval, and Nixon knew he had to get out. This was definitely, it was time to get out of Vietnam. There was no popular opinion, or popular opinion at all was against the war at this time. Well, in October '72, the U.S. Finally pulled out, and the last military regiment pulled out of Vietnam in March of 1973. Vietnam then united into one communist nation. This was the first time the U.S. military lost in history, and it took a long time for the U.S. Military to recover from this. The way the military was looked at. All sorts of ramifications at the end of the war. Many Vietnamese that supported the United States during this 13-year commitment there suffered at the hands of the communists invaded. Many Vietnamese tried to immigrate into the United States. The picture here is that dramatic scene of one of the last helicopters leaving the embassy compound in Saigon, trying to get Vietnamese people that were loyal to the United States to get them out of the country. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in class too. What were the final numbers, if you will? The effects: 58,000 Americans killed in action, 365,000 wounded or missing. In fact, in the news occasionally they're still recovering remains of troops that were killed in Vietnam whose remains were never recovered. Cambodia ended up falling to the communists, and the Khmer Rouge, I'm sure you probably studied about them in world history. Very, very brutal takeover of that country. And in '73, the War Powers Act, which limited the power of the president in wartime. Up to this, the president could pretty much do whatever he wanted as far as military. If you ever get a chance to see the Vietnam Wall in D.C., I would highly recommend it. It's a very moving experience. I know they have the movable wall comes to West Michigan every so often, and I would definitely get a chance. You should visit it. Quick story: a couple of the names on the wall. Of an acquaintance of mine, his brother died over there, and I can also remember, when I was in probably sixth or seventh grade, serving a funeral at the time of a captain who died in the Vietnam War, and it was a very, and I still remember to this day, a very moving experience. So this ends our lecture series on that, and we will see you in class.